Attention in the barn, if you could please bring all of your Dorsets to the show ring. All of your Dorsets to the show ring.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Eddy County Fair Sheep Show. We also welcome back Mr. Brandon Callis from Minko, Oklahoma. He's going to be judging our breeding sheep and market lambs this morning. Brandon's from Minko. Him and his family live there, originally from Texas, and he's the judging coach at Redlands University. Let's give Brandon a round of applause. He drove about 7 hours to get here.
Yes, good morning. Good to be back out here out west with you guys, and a good way to start off our show here with two pretty nice Dorper ewes. And again, I think they're both different. You can kind of go either way, but I like the added volume of the young ladies here. We're going to start with that one. When you watch them, we'll go from behind. Just travels with a little more base width. She's probably got a little more chest width there as well. Just a little bolder body, but yet still one that's attractive and good to look at on the move. The speckled one we're going to leave here in second, a little longer sided, a little neater looking, a little more streamlined all the way through. Just maybe didn't have quite the same kind of power and volume we're finding in the one up front. But let's give them a nice round of applause. Nice way to start the show with a nice pair of them.
Your first place and champion breeding sheep went to Peyton Norman, and your reserve and second place went to Kobe Norman. Colton Sandman, if you could please come bring your Class 1 Dorset to the show ring. Colton Sandman, Class 1 Dorset to the show ring. If you could please bring your Class 2 Dorpers to the show ring, to the wash rack. Class 2 Dorpers to the wash rack.
I think a good class here all the way through. Definitely a 5 quality sheep within this class and group, and I think it gets pretty competitive here with these 3. I think 3 of them maybe just have a notch more muscle and shape than those other 2 that we have here within this class, and I think the little things start to sort this one off. Just a little longer sided, a little more elevated up front, and probably the main difference between those 2, that one creases up with just a little better shape over his rack. He's got a little more dimension when you get in behind him. You watch these 2 travel, that one still handles himself in a good and athletic enough way. I love the rib cage on this one we're going to leave here in a second. I like his basic build. His proportions read very, very correct. But at the same time, he's kind of the short, jammed up one. I like to just extend him and make him just a little bigger statured amongst this group, maybe make him a little more defined in his shape. But boy, you talk about a rib cage and athletic build and the way he walks in terms of squareness, I like him quite well. This one here in third, if we can maybe correct him in his spine when he's on the travel, and I don't think it's anything she's doing, I just think it's the sheep. We can make that one better in terms of his spine and the way everything comes together. He changes it a lot because he's a kind of a combo of those 2 in terms of he's got some shape, he's got some expression, yet I still like the way he proportions out. Just when we get him on the go, he's a little high in his back, throws off his balance quite a bit there as well. Sheep we run here next, he's kind of a pretty sheep. It's got some length, it's got some smoothness, really sound, just needs more muscle and shape. Little stout one that we end up closing with, that one's extremely opened up and powerful in terms of muscle shape. Just want to see that one a little better balance, a little more up and extended up front there as well. So 5 good sheep here within that class.
First place in your Dorset class went to Kyla Hughes from Country Clovers. Second place went to Swayze Fulmar, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Madison Mancha from Artesia FFA. Fourth place, Colton Nikes from Cottonwood 4-H. And fifth place, Colton Sandman from Cottonwood 4-H. Please bring all your Class 3 speckle face to the holding pin. Class 3 speckle face to the holding pin.
Got a nice class of Dorpers here. Again, got some strength all the way through in terms of having some sheep that can get and go and travel, and they've got some function to them. The white one here at the front of the line just starts to put together a few more show lamb pieces along with that. Probably unmatched in this class in terms of just shape and expression, particularly when you get right in behind him and study him out of his hip and lower leg. Still one that hits you the best in terms of balance and just look and presence when you get to the side of him there as well. And I think what makes it, him probably separates him from this one in second. You get right on top of those two sheep. That one just sets in his rib cage a little better and a little bolder all the way through, and that just lends him to be a little more proportional there as well. So nice sheep that leads off this class. One we have here in second, I like his touch, I like his tone, I like his leanness. And when she gets that one propped up and together, boy, he can give you a good look. He's got some levelness to him and some correctness there. Little pieces of balance. He's got just a little more chest in relation to his flank that throws him off a little. When we get him on the travel, maybe he doesn't handle his hind leg quite as attractively, maybe as ones on either side of him, but I like his composition better in terms of having the right amount of condition on him and still having some shape and expression. That's where the cool colored one here gets in trouble for me. I love the basic build of this sheep. This one's wide, this one's open up. He's truly massive from one end to the other and still has some balance and some symmetry to him. He's starting to put on a little more condition for me. He handles a little softer, a little more chest floor. We could just, lean that one up. Boy, he makes that class even that much more challenging because his build's correct and he's got the right kind of width, just a little far gone in terms of condition for me personally. These next two, again, kind of come as a pair. I think two sheep that, again, very, very practical and good. This one tends to be just a little better in terms of his balance and out of his hip. I like the strength of his back leg. He's really big bone and sets down good there. Sheep that comes behind him, probably a little longer sided, but a little more pronounced in his chest. Maybe didn't have quite the expression of muscle we find in those ones ahead of him. Those two we end up closing with. I love the width of the weather. He's just a little soft handling for me. I want to see him just a little more defined in terms of his muscle, particularly up top. And then the ewe, she's beautiful from the side and she's flat and smooth up front. Just gets overpowered in this class by those ones ahead of him. But that's a nice class of Dorpers.
Please bring all your Class 4 speckle face to the holding pin. Class 4 speckle face to the holding pin. Thank you. In your Dorper class, first place went to Aspen Hughes from Country Clovers. Second place went to Madison Muncha from Artesia FFA. Third place, Clancy Conklin from Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, Dakota Goldston from Cottonwood 4-H. Fifth place, Dakota Goldston, Cottonwood 4-H. Sixth place, Olivia Jefferson, blue jeans and boots. Seventh place, Michaela Jefferson, blue jeans and boots.
I think a very good but a very challenging class here. I like to take pieces of all three of these front three and kind of mesh it together to get really comfortable there. But I think the U comes the closest to putting things together the right way as far as her look and her athleticism. I do think she's the best traveling one out here that still has the right kind of width and hip and pin width in her. She handles pretty good in terms of width and stoutness. She's one that's starting to get, just in terms of softness for me, I like to see her just a little more descript in terms of her muscle. But boy, her look, her presence, and the way she gets and goes, she's kind of the same moving as she is standing still. That's what finally convinced me to let her go ahead and win the class. I really want to get into this weather we have here in second. Just I like his stature, I like his width of pins, I like the way he handles there as well, and his smoothness. I just want to change him in the way he handles his hip and rear skeleton. He's just a little short and underneath himself when he gets on the go there. And maybe compared to the one right behind him, he's not maybe quite as defined right there over his rack and right behind his shoulder as what this one is. But boy, his length of hip, just his length in general and size is just a touch better than the little guy here in third. And this one again, his build's good, his structure's good. I like the silhouette when she gets that one put together. I just finally decided there wasn't enough of him in this class. I want to see him wider and stouter over his loin. I like to lengthen out his hip there as well. That's the only thing that don't quite match him. Everything's good and proportional, but he's just a little shorter hip there. But that's still a good sheep. I think with time on down the road, that one can make this class even more challenging because I like his quality. Sheep that comes here next, probably the biggest, stoutest one in here just in terms of weight and dimension. He's incredibly square and wide. He handles good there over his loin. I want to fix his front skeleton, and he does a good job trying to show it out of him, but he's just a little more incorrect in the way he's designing his shoulder and knee and gets a little more base wide and opens up. Wants to make him run downhill just a touch and maybe not look as cool and neat there from the side. That's a stout-made sheep that's got some squareness and some dimension to him there as well. Sheep that comes here next, he's just a little raw. His basics and outlines are good, just not quite there in terms of condition. He's just a little flatter body maybe even, but boy, big hip, good feet and legs, just needs a little more time for him as well. Same thing can be said for the one that comes next. She does an incredible job showing everything out of this one and getting him propped up in the right way. I just want to open him up all the way through, make him wider pin and just all the way up to his front there, just to open him up and give him a little more of him. Same thing can be said with this one here we're going to close with. That's a big legged one. She does a nice job keeping that one parked and good and keeping his head up and out of him. Just gets overpowered in this class in terms of muscle and shape. So really a good class of specs.
Class 3 Speckle Face, first place went to Clancy Conklin from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place, Jaylee England, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Swayze Fulmar, Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, Clay Kincaid, Artesia FFA. Fifth place, Kinley McCullough, Loving FFA. Sixth place, Madeline Clark, Carlsbad FFA. And seventh place, Lillian Nikes, Cottonwood 4-H.
Another good class here, and the one I'm pretty comfortable with that leads off this class. One that puts a lot of good together. I think one that's proportional and balanced as you look at him at every angle. He's got the right amount of muscle in terms of just his squareness is good. His progression of width and the way he opens up from front to rear is very, very good. And when you get him on the go, I think in this class he handles himself with so much more correctness out of his spine and his back leg movement, but yet one that still runs uphill, gives you a nice look from the side. So neat sheep here to win this class. A little more debate here with these next two, and again, does a nice job getting everything you can out of this ewe here up front. She's massive. She is opened up there in terms of her rack. She is big and flat and square in terms of her loin, and she's got a big hip in her. Just when we get her on the go, she's a short hip one and kind of gets underneath herself. Doesn't handle herself quite as neatly on the move as what she does when he gets in park standing, but still a nice kind of a sheep. Whether we run here in third, there's a lot I like about this one. Just heaviness of structure, just bigness of feature is good. Big chested one that's still got some muscle and some volume to him. Starting to handle just maybe not quite as fresh right over that loin. At times, though, he wants to open up and get just a little plainer up front. You like to see him just a little neater, more put together relative to those two. But I like his hip probably a little better than the one leads out ahead of him. Just some trade-offs between those two, but still good sheep. Big outline sheep that's got a lot of size and extension to him. I just wish he had a little more from behind to match that. He's good from his front three-quarter there. Just so you can get behind him, he wants to play out, maybe not quite have as much shape and stoutness. Got a pair of them here we close with, a bigger, more extended one that looks good propped up from the side. Same thing with him. I like to square him up in his hock and give him a little more power than the weather that closes us here. Just gets overpowered. He's smooth enough, lays into his shoulder neat enough soundness to him. Just need a little more meat and muscle in that one to roll up a little higher. But good class of specs.
Class 4 Speckle Face. First place went to Jaylee England, Cottonwood 4-H. Second place, Aiden Cox, Brush Poppers 4-H. Third place, Brylan Taylor, Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, McKenna Cox, Brush Poppers 4-H. Fifth place, McKenna Cox, Brush Poppers 4-H. And sixth place, Colton Sandman, Cottonwood 4-H. Trevor and Jonah Pope, if you could please make your way to the holding pin. Trevor and Jonah Pope to the holding pin.
here for our champion spec. Again, 4 nice sheep out here, and these 2 class winners, I think it'll become harder to find big holes in them that you want to change. The ewe out of that first class, I think when you just walk them and watch them go, you can watch her go for days. She's so athletic and so good in terms of agility and the way she gets and goes, and still there's enough muscle there. And her width, the base is good. She's so unique, though, in terms of just her head carriage, her neck, and the way it sits into the rest of her. My concern with her, she's just a touch softer, maybe, not as defined in terms of her muscle as what the weather is there. Then at times that ewe wants to give her a hard time from the profile, maybe not hold herself together, but boy, you get her walking and you don't even question it in terms of just her skeleton and her flexibility there. This weather here that came out of Class 2, again, his progression of width is good, his stoutness of his hip, the width of his loin, everything handles right and appropriate with that weather, and a lot of things fit together with him. You compare him to that ewe here, maybe not quite as neat and attractive, just right there up front in terms of his uniqueness there, but still one I think has got some athleticism to him there. At times, maybe you could power him up just a shade relative to what he is up front, but that's being picky. They got 2 awfully nice sheep here. One that just hit me and grabs me a little hard is that ewe out of the first class. So she's going to be the champ. Class 2 here will be a reserve.
Your champion Speckleface went to Clancy Conklin from Class 3, and your reserve went to J. Lee England. Congratulations. Please bring your Class 6 black faces to the holding pin. Class 6 black faces to the holding pin. If you are parked underneath the indoor arena on the other side, you might want to move your vehicle. They're about to start watering the inside. Again, if you are parked and you don't want a car wash, you might want to move it.
I think a neat class here to kick off our crossbreds. And again, 3 of them that sort pretty quickly as far as they grab you quality-wise. I still think the one that wins pretty handily. I think he combines the things you like about the ones in second and third here, and then takes that and just puts a little more uniqueness and look with that one. That one is a square built and open up and consistent in his base width from the base of his chest all the way out through his hip and rear base. He's big pin. He's monster back, but yet he sits a little neck there on top of his shoulder, but yet he's still got some muzzle and some stoutness to his skull. Still handles himself in an athletic enough manner. Just a nice sheep here leads off this class. To me, the discussion for me at least is his second and third, because personally I like to see him just a little stouter from behind than his one in second. But I would go as far as say that might be the soundest, best built, most athletic one of the entire group. His foot's big, his bone's big. He gets and goes and is as relaxed and corrective a way as anything in here. And you just got to make that call, you know, is there enough of him? Him being a lighter weight one here, I think there's time and he still comes to it. I just love his build. I love his fundamentals, the way he puts things together there. This one and third's the outlier, no doubt about it. You notice him. He is stout. He is muscular. He is opened up from one end to the other, almost to the point that maybe it becomes a distraction in terms of his structure. I like extras. I like power, but I want it to fit on their skeleton in the right way, and that's where this one starts to get in trouble. When we get him on the go, she does a good job pulling his head, neck, and out of him to try to make it work, but he's just forced a little forward in his shoulder with that kind of muscle on that skeleton. He gets a little tighter as he gets and goes off either end. But boy, he's a neat one to look at. He's a fun one to study. Just wish he was a little looser, more correct and athletic in terms of his movement. Sheep we have here next, a nice ewe. The handle's good. We've done a good job feeding this one. I love her touch and tone, and she's got some balance features, some quality features about her. Just ran into some tough competition. You stand there in front of her. Weather here next, I love his length and his look, and again, his soundness and athleticism is good. He just runs out of power up top. He gets just a little narrow and dished out there over his loin. Want to see him just a little more hydrated. Really, he starts to wrinkle just a little bit there with him. Sheep will come out here next, and maybe there were some trade-offs there. I think he probably handles better right there over his loin rather than the weather we set right ahead of him. Just doesn't have the same kind of look and presence when you get off to the side of that one. A little shorter hip, a little more shoulder that takes away from his look. Then we close with a pair of ewes here. Again, I think their smoothness is good. I think their fundamentals are there. They just need more time. They don't have quite the muscle, quite the product, quite the maturity on them that those sheep do ahead of them. But again, solid class here to start off those crossbreds.
Class 5 Blackface, your first place went to Creed Hughes, Country Clovers. Second place, Aspen Hughes, Country Clovers. Third place, Swayze Fulmar, Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, Bailey Dennison, Cottonwood 4-H. Fifth place, Stella Rand, Cottonwood 4-H. Sixth place, Clay Kincaid, Artesia FFA. Seventh place, Jonah Pope, Country Clovers. Eighth place, Trevor Pope, Country Clovers. Please bring all your Class 7 black faces to the holding pin. Class 7 black faces to the holding pin. Once again, your maroon Suburban, you're going to get a very poor car wash if you do not move your vehicle. A maroon Suburban.
Another nice class here in these lighter blackface sheep. Again, quality and goodness and pieces all the way through as you get to studying these. This one that leads off, again, it just grabs you really quickly. Yeah, he's stout featured, he's big legged, he's got a lot of leg wool, but I think underneath that, you look at the size of his feet, there's a lot of real sheep there. Just really, really massive in terms of muscle. You can see his over his spine in terms of his shape, yet he still has the right kind of look up front. I really enjoy watching the sheep move in terms of his looseness and flexibility. And again, maybe where I change him is right there, middle of his spine, where he goes from his loin out through his hip. Make all that collect and come together just a little more ideally. But that's a neat sheep that's got some neat pieces, some things that you don't often find them that powerful, but yet that's still good looking and that athletic. And so that's a nice sheep that leads off. There's times I think, boy, just a shot of leg wool would change this one's complexion totally. His balance is good, his symmetry is good. He runs uphill. I love his smoothness and the contour of his top line, the way he gets there as well. No, he's not as big-footed. No, he's not as expressive maybe as that sheep that leads ahead of him. That's finally what got him in second. But I think initially, if you can get past, he's maybe not quite as stout and woofy in his legs compared to ones behind him. That's a good sheep. It's got some fundamentals, got some good things about him. I like him quite a bit there as well. We run here next in third. Again, big hip. She's another one that's easy to look at when they first come in. Handles herself right in terms of her structure. Up those initial three, she's starting to play out in her loin just a little bit. I want to see her just a little fuller and better from her hip-loin junction there, and then relative to those other two, maybe send her into her shoulder a little better, this like the one we have there in second. But again, that's a good sheep. Got a lot of good pieces of her as well. Got a stout one here that's opened up, got the right kind of shape. Just one that starts to get a little lower fronted, a little more compact. Want to stretch that one out and pick her up off the ground. She's just a little lower, shorter stature all the way through, but boy, she handles good. We've done a good job feeding this one there as well. In terms of her touch and tone, she's got some shape. I just wish she was just a little later return looking in terms of front end and her elevation. Sheep that come here next, again, length is good in terms of just the length of top, length of hip. That one handles pretty good over her spine, but much like the ewe right in front of this one, just a little lower to the ground. This one too, I like to make a little stouter in terms of bone work and feature, just give a little more to her. I love the heaviness of structure. This one that comes next just doesn't have the same kind of muscle shape, particularly right there over his loin and out through his hip. Same thing can be said for the ewe that comes next. She's actually probably bigger at her base than what the wether is. Just maybe wants to not be quite as defined in her shape up top. Want to see her more opened up there. Then the ewe that ends up closing for us, she's probably as wide pin as those ones ahead of her. She's got some chest width to her there as well. Just from the side, maybe if she hits you, is just a notch plainer, doesn't have the shape to her lower leg, is what those sheep do ahead of her. But that's a nice, solid class of sheep.
Class 6 Blackface. First place went to Aspen Hughes, Country Clovers. Second place, Bailey Trujillo, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Gracie Rand, Artesia FFA. Fourth place, Ty Crook, Cottonwood 4-H. Fifth place, Aspen Cass, Brush Poppers 4-H. Sixth place, Maylee Phillips, Country Clovers. Seventh place, Macy Ryan, Country Clovers. And eighth place, Jonah Pope, Country Clovers. Please bring all your Division 1 first and second black faces, your Division 1 first and second black faces to the holding pin.
think a good class and a challenging class, just because there's a lot of things you can justify. And I'm talking about from one end to the other. It's probably the deepest class we've had so far today, from first to where we close here. And again, just a pretty solid set of sheep here. The weather we're going to start with, the longer they're out here, the less and less things you can really get on him about. He's a proportional one. That one handles as good and as toned and as fresh as anything in this class. And where he really probably ends up solidifying his win for me in this class is when we get these on the travel. To me, he's the most comfortable and correct one that we have out here. I wish he was a little longer probably, and maybe even just a touch bigger in his time, but that's being picky though. I like his basic build. I like his fundamentals. I like the way he came together here amongst this group. One here, again, that's in second. We can change this one's hind leg set and design. I think it changes that sheep completely. That's the best top one. That's the biggest back one. That one's massive out of his hip, and I love the body shape of this wether. I even like the way he's positioned in terms of his head and neck. He wants to fight the system a little bit and not make it easy to look at him. Main thing, though, when we get him on the travel there, I just want to change his rear skeleton, the way he handles it. That's still a nice sheep in terms of freshness, touch, tone. He's got the right kind of size and maturity to him here. Just want to make it a little better and more correct in terms of his structure. Sheep that come out here next, I go back and forth on here. There's a couple times I roll them down just maybe a place or two lower, and then I can justify them a place higher as well. That's a massive one in terms of just hip and pin width. That one's shape is undeniable over his spine. He's dead level. That one for me, when we get him on the go, he wants to run downhill. He's a little coarser about his shoulder, a little rounder and bunchier shoulder when you really get to studying him. And maybe his body and the way he tucks maybe doesn't lend himself to be as proportional off either end, but that's still a neat sheep that's got some features you really, really like. Just hard to figure out exactly where he needs to be amongst this group. Sheep we have here in fourth, that's the big outline, big statured, extended one of this crew. Very good in terms of his skeleton. I finally decided he's just a little immature, and I think his lack of maturity is what got him here in fourth. Want to see him just a little bold. That one comes because I think his basic build and fundamentals are good. Kind of the opposite with this one in fifth. I think there's times, again, you could run him up a little higher because today I think he has some things right. But for me, he got to be the plain sheep out here in terms of his look. He's a little plainer in terms of his shape of muscle when you get right on top of him. We've done a nice job, though, presenting him and feeding him. I just wish there was just a little more shape and expression, maybe a little more look up front in terms of his chest floor within that sheep. This ewe lamb was a hard one for me because she wants to fight the system a little bit, but that one's big featured. I love her rack shape. She is so pronounced and good out of the backside of her shoulder. Still has a good shape in terms of her leg dimension. Maybe not quite as wide and square in terms of her loin. And main thing, just balance-wise, maybe she doesn't come together quite as well. She's wanting to fight it, but there's still some quality amongst that sheep. I love the way this one handles. Boy, he's good in his pen. He's smooth and good and fresh in terms of his touch and tone. We get him on the move. He gets a little tighter topped, a little shorter couple. Want to stretch him out there. Kind of a blue ewe here. Again, really smooth, really good there over her loin. I want to open her up out of her hip pin and dock there, maybe give her a little more chest width. Same thing can be said, really long-bodied wether that's got a lot of look to him. Just needs to be more opened up. Then the ewe end up closing with. She's probably as practical as any sheep out here. Just one for me that got a little shorter all the way through wherever you study her. Want to stretch her out and give her just a little more expression herself. Outstanding class, a good solid class all the way through.
Class 7 Blackface, first place went to Clancy Conklin from Cottonwood 4-H. Second place, Bailey Trujillo, Cottonwood 4-H. Third place, Bailey Dennison, Cottonwood 4-H. Fourth place, Aiden Cox, Brush Poppers 4-H. Fifth place, Jaylee England, Cottonwood 4-H. Sixth place, Madison Mancha from Artesia FFA. Seventh place, Colton Sandman, Cottonwood 4-H. Eighth place, Jaylee Joy, Cottonwood 4-H. Ninth place, Aspen Cass, Brush Poppers 4-H. And 10th place, Macy Ryan, Country Clovers. Please bring your Class 8 Blackface to the holding ring. Class 8 Blackface to the holding ring.
really a nice division of sheep here in these first few classes. Really stoked with what we have out here, and I'll be brief going through them. We got more show to get through, but really nice set of them. This blue one here out front, he's just kind of a neat critter. When you get to looking at him, just the way he puts things together, his squareness, is just his contour, his shape is very, very, very good. And the interesting thing about him, as you continue to watch that one get and go and grow and develop, I think he does nothing but just put on more pounds and more weight and keep that same kind of look and attractiveness about him. Still handles himself plenty good in terms of his structure, and I think if you're going to nitpick on him at all, again, being ideal, maybe you tweak him just a touch maybe in his knee and shoulder, but that's being picky, because that kind of length up front, that kind of true squareness and dimension from there back with not a lot of waist there in the middle, I think is very admirable about that sheep, and I absolutely love his hip and hind leg and what it does there. It's one out of class 2. Boy, I'm not going to lie, that one gets me pretty good in terms of just his feature. Heaviness of bone, heaviness of structure, lots of power, lots of shape. But what's cool about that, as you watch these guys travel, that one's still athletic moving, that one's still long reaching, that one still gets and goes correctly. Like we talked about in class, you just correct him right there in his upper spine and right through his loin ever so slightly. But again, it's hard to put that kind of muscle and bone and power into one and still keep it as athletic moving is what that one does. It's one that came out of this last class we just got done with. Again, a lot of good fundamental things right with that sheep. Again, his freshness is good. He's got the right kind of muscle. He's got some smoothness to him. He's probably not as unique in his look as what those two are, but he still fits together in terms of proportion in a very, very, very good way here. So really nice set of them. Got a nice set of seconds there as well. I go back and forth between these front two, but that blue one's just hard to make and hard to build there. Just we like to see that one as that one gets to go, how big that one gets to get and what it becomes. But today, I like that blue one to be our champion here in Division 1. Class 2 here will be reserved.
Your Division 1 blackface champion went to Creed Hughes from Class 5, and reserve went to Aspen Hughes from Class 6. Congratulations. Please bring your Class 9 blackface to the holding pin. Class 9 blackface to the holding pin.
Got another good class of sheep here to kick off this middle division. And again, as soon as this one came in amongst this class, I just thought maybe his quality, his look, his presence is kind of what distanced him out here. And then you get on top of him, there's still a meat animal there in terms of just his width and dimension, his squareness. He's awesome there on the backside of his shoulder there as well. And although he's probably got a considerable advantage in terms of soundness, I'd still like to maybe make him just a little different in terms of his reach up front, make him just a little longer, more comfortable there. But boy, that silhouette, that look, the squareness, I think he handles this class pretty fairly easily. One we run here next in second, really a powerhouse in terms of muscle. He is big over his loin. He's big out of his hip. One for me, though, I like to maybe make just a little neater there in his lower chest and shoulder, maybe make him a little more ideal in the angle of his hock. He starts to get just a little straighter there, if you will. But boy, his body